As we admire the current diverse gender spectrum and wholesome political environment, one thing is abundantly clear. Sexual promiscuity has been a blessing for Western culture. Never before in history has homosexuality, one-night stands, and sexual psychosis been celebrated as the highest expression of human freedom. Now, if we temporarily overlook certain oddities, such as skyrocketing STDs, broken families, loneliness epidemics, plummeting marriage rates, and the small matter of nobody knowing who their real father is, then there is no obvious signs that promiscuity has had any negative cultural impact. To scientifically prove this reality, all one needs to consider is that approximately 41% of murders and self-deleting are directly linked to breakdowns in intimate relationships, thus proving that intimate attachment to any one individual is the leading cause of lethal violence in our world today. Welcome back, folks, to another episode of My Truth, the only show that delivers 100% authentic reality pre-approved by your government-funded public schools and mainstream media. Without further ado, let's jump into tonight's topic: the gender-neutral benefits of sexual liberation. To help clear up any lingering confusion, let's take a moment to explore the rich history and cultural fruits of sexual promiscuity. The cultural normalization of promiscuity dates back to pagan antiquity, where even pagan gods, such as Zeus and Jupiter, were regular partakers in sowing their divine oats in many immortal maidens. Backed by their pagan theology, these ancient cultures promoted all manner of fleshy pleasures, from orgies to sodomy. Now, a thoughtful pursuer of truth may ask, why did such commonplace ancient pastimes become so taboo in modern culture? Why, the corruption of Christianity, of course. Yet fear not. After nearly 2,000 years of cultural barbarity via Christianity, paganism and sexual promiscuity have made a roaring comeback with the dawn of the sexual revolution. The humble movement was built upon the foundational thoughts laid out by the father of modern psychology, the brilliant Jewish cocaine addict Sigmund Freud. His brilliant theory of the Oedipus complex mainstreamed the idea that infants and children are already developing sexual desires, which, if repressed, leads to psychosis in adults. But more on Freud in a later episode. With this new scholastically approved framework, which sexualized children and demonized self-control, prominent Jewish authors like Wilhelm Reich and Gloria Steinem pushed for ever greater degrees of culturally approved debauchery. In a mere few years, the sexual revolution took the Western world by storm and replaced the carefully constructed moral dogmas of Catholic culture with traditional pagan values under the guise of New Age dogmas, such as self-expression, sexual autonomy, and most notable of all, freedom. At long last, men and women alike were liberated from the oppressive burden of monogamy. Marriage, fidelity, and child-rearing were tossed aside in favor of finding yourself through a series of steamy encounters with strangers. Finally, thanks to widespread hedonism, heroin, and herpes, anyone could grab life by the genitals, redefining previously outdated norms and embracing a utopia where pleasure-seeking was the highest virtue. To fully appreciate the scale of this transformative movement, it's essential to first examine the backwards traditions of earlier Christian cultures. Early Catholic Christian nations, guided by Scripture, taught that sex was sacred, reserved for a husband and wife, united in fidelity and open to the possibility of children. Teaching that mankind by nature was bent toward selfish indulgence, Christian cultures curbed our capacity for hedonism by upholding public moral standards that not only condemned but often outlawed many pagan norms, such as divorce, adultery, sodomy, and polygamy. This rigid moralism goaded Christian adults towards the responsibility of rearing the next generation, which in turn caused a domino effect of cultural atrocities, such as stable families, cohesive communities, children who knew their fathers, and parents that didn't ceremoniously sacrifice their offspring. These horrors sadly robbed early Christians of countless opportunities for self-expression, sexual autonomy, and most notable of all, freedom. Yet, fortunately, thanks to the sexual revolution, Nigh all Western cultures and religions have been united under one hedonistic ideology of narcissistic, self-indulgent materialism. Even Christianity, a once prominent bulwark of opposition, has begun to embrace sexual depravity as it continues to fracture into countless unrecognizable Protestant Christian sects. Hedonism must be indulged, after all, as our entire economy depends on our continued materialistic consumerism, debauchery, and usury. Without these pillars of modern Western culture, we will be left with nothing but an existential crisis which no amount of talk therapy can cure. Join us next time for the thrilling continuation, Polyamory, Porn, and the Path to Paradise. Proudly brought to you by even more government psyops. If this episode has freed you from the chains of outdated prudery, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Act now and become one of the first billion subscribers, and a free lifetime supply of herpes cream could be yours. Terms and conditions may apply.